Some relationships can slowly drain your energy, happiness, and self-worth without any physical harm ever taking place. Emotional abuse leaves deep scars you can't see but feel every day. The worst part? It's often so subtle that many people don't realize they're experiencing it until they've already been deeply affected. Today, I'm breaking down the 5 key signs that someone in your life might be emotionally abusive. These aren't just random behaviors, they're specific patterns that damage your mental health and well-being over time. What makes emotional abuse so dangerous is how easily it disguises itself as love, concern, or even humor. By the end of this video, you'll be able to spot these harmful patterns right away, whether they're happening to you or someone you care about. I strongly recommend watching this entire video without skipping any parts. If you're short on time, try watching at 1.5 or 2 times speed instead of missing important information. What you learn today could literally change your relationships and help you protect yourself from people who might be causing you harm without you even knowing it. Are you ready to discover these 5 critical warning signs? Let's begin with something that trips up so many people. Ever had someone check your phone because they just care so much about you? Or maybe they constantly text asking where you are and who you're with? Funny how that intense care can feel suffocating after a while, right? Here's the deal. Genuine care doesn't feel like a prison sentence. When someone truly cares about you, they trust you to make your own choices. They don't need to monitor your every move or decide who deserves to be in your life. Think about it like this. If a friend kept checking your food to make sure you weren't being poisoned, you'd think they were crazy. But somehow, when a partner checks our phone to protect us, many of us accept it as normal. It's not normal, it's the first sign of emotional abuse. What makes this type of control so tricky is how it grows over time. It starts small. Maybe they call to check in when you're out with friends. Sweet, right? Then they call multiple times. Then they start texting, asking when you'll be home. Before you know it, they're questioning why you even need to see your friends at all. Many people mistake this behavior for love. Wow, they care so much about me. But real love gives freedom. It doesn't take it away. Here's how to spot the difference. Healthy care comes with respect for your choices. Abusive control comes with consequences if you don't comply. Let me share what this looks like in real conversations. Healthy care sounds like, have fun with your friends tonight, text me if you need anything. Controlling behavior sounds like, who exactly will be there? I don't want you hanging out with Sarah, she's a bad influence. Send me updates throughout the night. The most dangerous part? This control slowly cuts you off from everyone who might help you see what's happening. Your friends and family become negative influences, or just don't understand our relationship. And without those outside perspectives, you start to believe the controller's version of reality. If you're experiencing this, here's a simple sentence to practice. I appreciate your concern, but I need to make my own decisions. Remember, someone who truly loves you will respect your independence, not try to control it. They'll celebrate your other relationships, not try to destroy them. And that's sign number 1 out of 5. Control that disguises itself as care. It might feel like protection, but real protection doesn't come with handcuffs. Now, I remember talking with a friend who kept apologizing for everything during our lunch. When I asked why, tears filled her eyes as she said, "My partner tells me I'm always saying the wrong thing. Now I just assume I'm wrong before I even speak." That tight feeling in your chest when someone who's supposed to love you makes you feel small, that's not love. That's sign number 2 of emotional abuse. Constant criticism and diminishment. The thing about criticism from an emotional abuser is that it's rarely just straightforward feedback. Instead, it comes wrapped in what I call the criticism sandwich. First, they give you a tiny compliment. You look nice today. Then, they deliver the real message. That outfit would look better if you weren't so out of shape. Finally, they close with another small positive. But your hair looks cute at least. This leaves you feeling confused, hurt, and somehow grateful for the small bits of approval. It's an emotional roller coaster designed to keep you off balance and hungry for their approval. What makes this especially painful is how these put-downs often disguise themselves as just jokes or helpful advice. They might laugh after saying something hurtful, then tell you to lighten up when you don't find it funny. Or they might claim they're just trying to help you improve when pointing out your flaws. One of the most damaging forms happens in public. They criticize you in front of others, making funny remarks about your intelligence, appearance, or abilities. When you confront them later, they defend themselves saying, "I was just being honest," or "Everyone was laughing, why can't you take a joke?" The sad truth is that over time, this constant criticism destroys your self-esteem. You start to believe these negative messages. You begin to see yourself through their critical eyes rather than your own. You might even start criticizing yourself before they can, a protective mechanism that only deepens the damage. And when you try to express how their words hurt you, that's when they flip the script. You're too sensitive, you can't take criticism, or "I was just trying to help." This gaslighting doubles the impact by making you question not just your worth, but your perception of reality itself. The difference between constructive feedback and abusive criticism is simple. Constructive feedback builds you up, while abusive criticism tears you down. Constructive feedback is specific and actionable. Abusive criticism attacks who you are as a person. Perhaps most exhausting is the moving goalposts phenomenon. No matter what you achieve or how you change, it's never enough. Fix one flaw, and they'll find another to focus on. This ensures you're always striving, never arriving at good enough. If you're constantly walking on eggshells, afraid of criticism that could come at any moment, you're experiencing sign number 2 of emotional abuse. And you deserve better than a relationship that makes you feel smaller instead of helping you grow. Now, if you're finding this information valuable and want to support the channel, consider clicking that thanks button below. Your support helps me continue creating content that might change someone's life. Now let's continue to our third sign. Have you ever felt trapped in an emotional maze where every turn leads to someone else's needs? Where your happiness seems to depend entirely on keeping another person satisfied? That's because you're dealing with sign number 3 of emotional abuse, emotional manipulation. Emotional manipulators are masters of the guilt trip. They transform their desires into your obligations with statements like, "After everything I've done for you," or "If you really cared about me." These phrases plant seeds of guilt that grow into compliance. You find yourself doing things not because you want to, but because you feel you must to prove your love or loyalty. When guilt doesn't work, they often resort to the silent treatment, a particularly painful form of emotional punishment. They withdraw affection, communication, and their presence entirely. This creates a desperate need to fix whatever wrong you've committed, even if you don't understand what it was. The relief when they finally speak to you again feels like winning a prize, reinforcing your need to please them. What makes manipulators especially dangerous is how they study your vulnerabilities. Those insecurities you shared in moments of trust, they become weapons later. If you've shared that you worry about being abandoned, they'll threaten to leave during arguments. If your body image is sensitive, they'll make subtle comments about your appearance when you're not complying with their wishes. Their mood swings serve as another control tactic. One minute they're loving and kind, the next they're cold or explosive, with no apparent reason for the change. This unpredictability keeps you constantly alert, trying to read their emotions and adjust your behavior to avoid triggering them. Walking on eggshells becomes your normal state. Some manipulators go even further by threatening self-harm when they don't get their way. "If you leave me, I'll hurt myself," or "I can't live without you," aren't expressions of love. They're emotional blackmail designed to trap you in the relationship through fear and responsibility. Listen for phrases like, "No one will ever love you like I do," "You'll never find someone who puts up with you," or "I'm the only one who truly understands you." These statements isolate you by cutting off your belief in alternatives to this relationship. Perhaps most insidious is how manipulators create crises just when you're establishing independence. Just started a new job. Suddenly they have a major emergency that requires your attention. Making new friends? Watch how quickly a health scare or financial crisis pulls you back into their orbit. This manipulation often follows a predictable cycle. Tension builds, an emotional explosion occurs, followed by a blissful honeymoon period where they're on their best behavior until the tension starts building again. This cycle keeps you hopeful that the good times represent the real person, when in fact the entire cycle is who they truly are. Understanding these tactics is crucial because emotional manipulation robs you of your autonomy while making you feel like you're freely choosing to prioritize the manipulator. It's like having invisible strings attached to your decisions, with someone else pulling them just subtly enough that you don't notice. And that's sign number 3 of emotional abuse. Emotional manipulation that converts your free will into their control. Let's continue exploring these important warning signs. That never happened. You're remembering it wrong. You're crazy. These simple phrases can destroy your sense of reality when repeated often enough. This is sign number 4 of emotional abuse, gaslighting, a form of psychological manipulation that makes you question your own memory, perception, and sanity. Gaslighting gets its name from a 1944 movie where a husband manipulates his wife by dimming their gas lights and then denying they've changed when she notices. Today, it refers to any attempt to make someone doubt their reality. And it's one of the most damaging forms of emotional abuse, because it attacks the very foundation of your ability to trust yourself. Let me share what everyday gaslighting looks like. You clearly remember your partner agreeing to attend your work event, but when the day comes, they insist you never discussed it. When you show them the text message proving it, they claim you're being obsessive for keeping track. This double manipulation first denies reality, then punishes you for defending it. What makes gaslighting so effective is its progressive nature. It starts with small lies or denials that seem trivial, perhaps about a comment made during dinner or a small promise broken. Why make a big deal about something so minor? But these small instances accumulate, gradually wearing down your confidence in your own perceptions. Over time, the distortions become larger. They might deny entire conversations or events. They might move your belongings and then suggest you're losing your mind when you can't find them. They might even involve others, saying things like, "Everyone agrees with me," or "Everyone thinks you're overreacting." Watch for phrases like, "That's not what happened," "You're too sensitive," "You have a terrible memory," or "No one else has a problem with me." These statements shift the problem from their behavior to your perception of it. The psychological impact of ongoing gaslighting is profound. Victims often experience anxiety, depression, and a persistent feeling that something is wrong, but they can't quite identify what. They begin to doubt their own feelings and memories, becoming increasingly dependent on the abuser to define reality. This dependency is exactly what the gaslighter wants. By controlling the narrative of what's real and what isn't, they gain unprecedented power in the relationship. Your growing self-doubt becomes their greatest tool of control. If you suspect you're being gaslighted, start documenting events. Keep a private journal, save text messages, and when possible, confirm your perceptions with trusted friends or family. These concrete records can anchor you to reality when someone is trying to distort it. When responding to gaslighting attempts, simple phrases can be powerful. "I know what I experienced," "My feelings are valid," or "We remember this differently, and that's okay." These statements affirm your reality without directly challenging theirs, which often leads to less resistance. Remember that gaslighting isn't always intentional. Some people distort reality because they themselves have trouble accepting it. However, Whether intentional or not, the damage to your mental health is real and serious. No relationship is worth losing trust in your own mind. And that's sign number 4 of emotional abuse, a systematic attempt to replace your reality with one that serves someone else's needs. This manipulation erases your trust in yourself, which is why recognizing it is so crucial for your well-being. Now, think back to a time when you clearly told someone what you needed, only to have them repeatedly ignore it. Remember how it felt, that mixture of frustration, helplessness, and eventually resignation. That feeling is a warning sign that you're experiencing the 5th sign of emotional abuse, boundary violations. Boundaries are the invisible lines that define where you end and others begin. They protect your physical space, emotional energy, time, and personal values. When someone consistently crosses these boundaries, they're not just being forgetful, they're showing a fundamental disrespect for your autonomy. Take a moment to reflect on your current relationships. Is there someone who repeatedly does things you've asked them not to do? Perhaps you've told them you don't like being touched in a certain way, yet they continue. Maybe you've expressed that certain topics are off limits, but they bring them up anyway. Or you've asked for privacy when you're working, but they constantly interrupt. What makes boundary violations particularly insidious is how abusers often use testing to see what they can get away with. They might start with small violations, calling slightly too late at night, asking slightly too personal questions, or making slightly inappropriate comments. If you don't firmly object, the violations gradually increase in severity. This creates a cycle that's hard to break. Boundary violation, followed by your upset response, followed by their apology and temporary improvement, followed by new violations. Each cycle normalizes the intrusion a bit more, making it harder for you to maintain your standards of acceptable treatment. When you do try to enforce your boundaries, abusers have a particular talent for flipping the script. They'll frame your reasonable limits as controlling. Why are you so uptight or unfair? You let other people do this, why not me? This manipulation makes you question whether your boundaries are actually reasonable, when in fact they require no justification. Healthy responses to boundaries sound like, "I understand, I'll respect that," or "Thank you for letting me know what you need." Unhealthy responses include, "You're too sensitive," "I was just joking," or promises to change that never materialize into actual behavior change. If you're struggling with boundary violations, try using simple, direct language. When you, specific action, I feel emotion. In the future, I need specific behavior. If they respect this, wonderful. If not, the violation is intentional, not a misunderstanding. It's important to understand that consistent boundary violations are never accidental. We all occasionally forget or make mistakes, but repeated patterns of ignoring someone's clearly stated limits reveal an intentional disregard for their autonomy and well-being. This principle extends beyond romantic relationships. Friends who repeatedly cancel plans at the last minute, family members who share your personal information without permission, or colleagues who take credit for your work are all demonstrating the same fundamental disrespect. Respect for boundaries forms the foundation of all healthy relationships. Without it, genuine intimacy becomes impossible because true connection requires safety, and safety requires knowing your limits will be honored. As you reflect on your own relationships, consider not just whether your boundaries are being violated, but whether you're clearly communicating them in the first place. Many of us have been conditioned to believe that stating our needs is selfish, when in fact it's the most honest form of communication we can offer. And that's sign number 5 of emotional abuse. Persistent boundary violations that erode your sense of personal agency and safety. When someone respects your boundaries, they're saying, "I value you exactly as you are." When they repeatedly violate them, they're saying something very different. We've covered the 5 critical signs of emotional abuse: control disguised as care, constant criticism, emotional manipulation, reality denial through gaslighting, and boundary violations. But recognizing these patterns is just the beginning of your journey. Remember that one or two of these behaviors occasionally doesn't necessarily indicate abuse. We all have bad days. It's the consistent patterns that signal danger. If you've recognized multiple signs in your relationship, please take this seriously. This isn't just a rough patch. It's a warning that your emotional health is at risk. If you're seeing these patterns, consider reaching out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline or connecting with a therapist who specializes in abusive relationships. You don't have to navigate this alone. Healing after emotional abuse is absolutely possible. Many survivors rebuild their self-trust, reclaim their reality, and go on to form healthy, loving relationships. The journey starts with trusting your perceptions and honoring your experience. The lessons in this video aren't just information, they're tools for protecting your mental health and well-being. Imagine yourself a year from now, either continuing in the same painful patterns or standing firmly in your worth. Which version of yourself will you choose to become? For those ready to take that first step toward change, the YouTube algorithm knows exactly what information you need next. That video appearing on your screen right now is specifically selected to help you continue this journey of understanding and healing. Click on it now. Your future self will thank you for having the courage to keep learning and growing. Remember, recognizing abuse isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign of wisdom. You deserve relationships that lift you up, not tear you down. Trust yourself enough to create the life you truly deserve.